Dawn of War. It's an old game. A game so old that younger players in the community may even be playing a game that came out before they were even born. Now, I think, in my own personal opinion, there are many reasons it stood the test of time with an active online player base to this very day. One being that the base game is just so good. Even by the standards of modern RTSs, Dawn of War just hits all the right notes. The second point is that successor games such as Dawn of War 2 and 3, while being RTSs in their own right, did not scratch that base building, large army itch that a lot of us who enjoy the original series have. And the third point is the mods. Before I go on to the mods though, I do want to say that I am a big fan of vanilla. If you look at my upload schedule on this channel, I commit most of my time to vanilla, as I believe it's the most accessible and fun to cast for seasoned veterans of the franchise, old players who are just getting back into the game, and new players who are playing Dawn of War for the first time. That being said, mods keep the game fresh with new metas, races, maps, and a whole other bunch of features such as improved cameras and mod managers. Today, I want to go through the changelog of one such mod, Dawn of War Pro. I'm a huge fan of this mod because it's similar to the vanilla experience, making it accessible for new players while being different and interesting enough to entice older players. It's for this reason that whenever someone asks me about mods and they've never played a mod before, I always recommend they try Dawn of War Pro first. But anyways, enough of me rambling, let's have a look at this changelog. So here is a changelog in all its glory. So we have 1v1 map Sugar Oasis being added to the map pool. In a previous game, I think it was Orcs versus Necrons on this channel. Big jungly kind of map with a big river in the shape of an S going right down the middle. So very good map, a nice addition to the map pool. Going on Space Marines, their Venerable Dreadnought replaced its plasma cannon with a heavy flamer, and it's also increased its Storm Bolter damage by 1% overall, as well as decreasing its cost from 320 and 440 to 240 and 390. So I quite like that, because the Venerable Dreadnoughts, I think you build them in the orbital relay, and you can deep strike them in. If you deep strike a Dreadnought in, it's got a plasma cannon, it kind of implies that you need to deep strike it a little further away, which thematically, if you're deep striking a Dreadnought in, you want to deep strike them smack bang in the middle of all the baddies, and a heavy flame will just makes it a lot more better in close combat, I reckon. So I do quite like that change, if not for thematical reasons, and also just a general decrease will make it be seen more in combat, I think, because I don't think we've actually seen a Venerable Dreadnought in the 1v1s in the games we've cast on this channel so far. So hopefully this will get some more Venerable Dreadnoughts on the battlefield. And their turret has an increased sight range up from 30 to 40, and that is quite a common change all the way through each faction, with the exception of Necrons, which is 30 to 35. No changes for Dark Eldars. I don't think they've got any turrets, to be fair. And I think the Sisters also have only, yeah, there we go, only 30 to 35. For Chaos, they've had some love for their Dreadnought as well. They've increased the multi-metal damage versus low infantry, low fortified buildings, medium fortified buildings, and medium vehicles, while also a slight decrease in requisition cost as well. So just a general nice buff for the Dreadnought, I do believe. Going on to the Eldar, their Wraithguard has had their range increase from 18 to 28, so that's quite a decent range increase. Their damage values now affect monsters, elite heavy infantry, low and medium fortified buildings, as well as low vehicles. And they've also had their Warlock removed, and instead just have a 1+ max to their members. Again, I remember talking to the people who developed this mod, and they mentioned to me that the Wraithguard, it's in a bit of a weird position at the moment, because I'm not entirely sure what the purpose or what the role of the Wraithguard are, so they're kind of just generally a bit naff. But this gives them a little bit more of a role, that more long range, they affect more kinds of units. So yeah, a general long range artillery, blow the enemy up. And also I quite like the idea of removing the Warlock, because yeah, in Dawn of War 2, Warlocks, you add them to the Wraithguard, increase their movement speed and whatnot. But then obviously in this game, if you've got a Warlock in the background and these dudes are firing from a long range, do they need the increased movement speed? Do they need all that? So I think that getting rid of the Warlock and just having an extra member to the squad is a good shout, in my honest opinion. The Guardsmen have had a little change to the Kasrkins. They've had a decrease in the time that it takes for them to capture points like the Assault Marines and Raptors and whatnot. So yeah, I quite like, because I mean, Kasrkins in this mod, obviously they go out, they use their infiltration, they're a bit of a nuisance, a pain in the backside, so having them have a decreased time to capture points, it just makes a more logical sense. It gives them a more clearer, defined purpose for what their role is on the battlefield, so I do quite like that. Going on to the Necrons, the attack scouts no longer have the ability to teleport through monolith abilities, which again makes a lot of sense, because I mean in the Necron army, almost all the models are able to teleport this way and that way using Necron tier pillars and just general when their morale breaks and they get to teleport and stuff. Attack scouts, they are quite mobile, and they're already a nuisance, and with the ability to teleport this way and that makes them quite a difficult unit to deal with, especially if you're assaulting the enemy base and attack scouts are, you know, harassing you from the backside, and you know your mind's been split in two different ways. I do believe this is a good balancing thing for them. Dark Eldar, their warriors have got a squad loadout increase from 3 to 4, so that makes the warriors a more viable thing to go for in the early game, as well as the Hellions and Witches. They've had their overall hit points decreased, which again, for thematic reasons, gives them a more of a glass cannon vibe, which is all good and that. And then the Sisters, as you can see, that they've probably been the faction with the most, how would I say, changes, the most love given to them in this patch. So we'll start with the Servitors. Their dismantle ability no longer has a global cooldown, so it'll mean that they're, well, if you're unfamiliar with their dismantle ability, essentially they go up to a building, wait a little bit, and then they do massive damage to any building within range, which I quite like, because obviously if you've got your listening posts and they're unprotected and they haven't got that level up, a Servitor can just go up to them and just basically destroy them, no questions asked and stuff. And without a global cooldown, it does mean that they're a lot more likely to get some use out of the dismantle ability, because I don't think you really see it either in vanilla or pro games. You don't really see that ability being used, so this change will hopefully we'll get to see some cool Servitor plays. It's kind of like the Gretchens in the Orc army. In Dawn of War Pro, they have the Burner Bomb ability, and you do see that ability being used a lot. So I do quite like this change. Yeah, we might be able to see some more dismantling in the games. The Missionaries have had a fair bit of work done to them. They've had an increase of their hard cap from 4 to 6 models, as well as losing the access to Emperor's Touch, instead gaining Divine Retribution. Divine Retribution being that they changed their armor type to demons, and it's now a toggle ability, which, while no longer granting secondary armor, while active, it also increases the reload time for the squad's weapons. So generally, increasing from 4 to 6, Divine Retribution, all that stuff, it generally, from what I can understand, it makes them a lot more survivable, it makes them a lot more durable, increases their survivability in the grand scheme of things, which is quite useful, especially in the early game when there's lots of harassment going on. They've also had their Lay of Hands duration decreased from 15 down to 10, and their cooldown decreased from 90 to 30. So while the Lay of Hands lasts a lot less, the cooldown for them allows them to spam it a little bit more. So yeah, so I'd say that the Missionary Squad is now a lot more of a, how would I say, like a tanking unit. It won't die as often as you would see in normal games. So cool, nice one, I like that. The regular Sisters of Battle, they've had a small increase to the damage versus light infantry and heavy infantry targets, and the Omega Fire passive healing Aura is now also a area effect rather than just healing the ladies in that squad, which I quite like, because if you imagine if you've got like 3 or 4 Sisters of Battle squads and they all have an Omega Fire, then I imagine that's kind of like a stackable stuff, which just keep your ladies alive and generally increasing their tankiness, which is all well and good. Emperor's Touch has been reworked on the regular Battle Sisters, so it's only able to counter heavy infantry targets. 10 seconds duration time with a recharge time of 30 seconds. No longer grants secondary armor. So rather than, because Emperor's Touch generally makes them a soft counter to, I would say, most if not all units, but reworking it so it only counters heavy infantry targets, I do quite like that. It again gives them a very specific purpose. Regular Sisters, they attack infantry, they attack heavy infantry, and that's what they do best. So yeah, nice one. So the Celestians have had a little bit of change as well. Act of Faith Holy Veil is now a toggleable ability. This ability lets them be infiltrated. Does the same as before, but reduces the overall squad speed. So yeah, it's in the previous iteration, Act of Faith Holy Veil made the Celestian squad temporarily infiltrated, but now with it being a toggle ability, I imagine it just keeps them infiltrated for the entire time that they're on. Which, yeah, it gives, because I imagine that the Sisters, yeah, from if memory serves me well, they don't have any actual infiltrated units. So now, with this toggleable ability, they do have the option to have infiltrated unit, so that gives them a bit more flexibility, especially in the Celestian department. Cannon S, just minor change for her, fixed the wrong value for her bolt pistol versus infantry low targets, fixed the wrong minimum maximum damage applied to her plasma pistol. So only just text changes for the Cannon S here. The Confessor, again, similar deal, just fixed the wrong value for his bolt pistol versus infantry low targets, so nothing much to sing about home there. Retributors, they've had a decrease by 6% to the heavy bolter damage versus all heavy infantry targets, and they also no longer have access to Divine Retribution. Retributors are basically the anti-vehicle, anti-building kind of unit for the Sisters in Dawn of War Pro. And yeah, I understand decreasing their heavy bolter damage by 6%. It does reduce their ability to combat regular heavy infantry and all that jazz. And also the Divine Retribution, the ability that when you attack the Retributors, you then deal a small bit of damage to yourself. It just makes them a lot less tanky, a lot more focused and orientated towards attacking vehicles and buildings and whatnot. The Pensia squad now have access to the Emperor's Touch ability, which, as we mentioned earlier, gives them a general soft counter to all sorts of armor. They've also replaced... it looks like they've replaced the Righteous Fervor with that ability. I mean, if you had Righteous Fervor and Emperor's Touch on top of each other, that would be quite a speedball of damage to deal with, really. Mistress has also been moved to Tier 3, so yeah, that's a thing. We've already mentioned that before. Listing Post 2 increased by 11% of their damage to infantry low, 8% infantry mid. Just general damage against all infantry, so Listing Post level 2, generally better overall. War Gear, Psycho, Coulomb, and Objective Localizer System Research. Just fix the wrong value, so fixing all the text and whatnot in that, so minor change on that. And Martyr's Gift Research been moved to Tier 3. So obviously Martyr's Gift is where if a sister dies, then the sister's player gains a little bit of faith. Moves to Tier 3. I'm not entirely sure what effect that will have on the battle, but I imagine with a lot of these abilities being toggle now and being able to toggle them on and off, costing faith, as the game begins, those toggle abilities, you've got to commit to them. You either want them on or you want them off. Whereas when the Martyr's Research comes into play, maybe it gives the sisters a little bit more flexibility in that late game for whether they want to adapt or change what's toggled on or off. But yeah, that has been the changelog for Dawn of War Pro. I'm quite excited to see how these changes affect the general overall gameplay. If you are interested in taking part and playing these games and getting involved and whatnot, the links to Discord and the mod are in the description below. Feel free to, if you enjoyed this changelog video, have a look at the other videos that I do on this channel. Leave a like if you feel so obliged, and if you fancy, give us a subscribe. There's loads more videos coming down the pipeline. So yeah, anyway, my name's been Mr. Landshark. Pleasure as always, never sure. I will see you in a bit. Peace.